Liberals say they have a plan, but the plan looks like destroy Canada and everyone who lives here. Absolutely everybody who lives here. 3 NDP quit in one day. Bye-bye. See you later. Bye. Charlie Angus is one of them. Ukraine to join NATO, says de facto U.S. President Blinken. So that's interesting. China is blowing up again, and we're going to start there. We're talking about, I've told this story a few times, but now Aaron O'Toole is saying, yeah, Mr. Poilievre's not the real leader of the Conservative Party because China interfered in getting me ousted. And China, played a role in getting Poilievre elected, winning the leadership race, because that's one of the chinks in our armor. And I was like, what? Ha! Unifor self-owned on Ford electric vehicles. So I'll get to that story. Basically, they put themselves in a position where the Ford Motor Company said, okay, we'll just move our production of these gas cars to Mexico and China. See you later. And we'll build EVs here. Wink. So that's going just about as well as you'd think. And there is bird flu. And what are they doing? Destroying eggs and destroying dairy farms and things like that. This bird flu was found on a dairy farm, so it's jumping from birds to cows to humans. Dun, dun, dun. Right? Oh, I actually have that sound. So that goes a little long. Lots to get to. Let's get to it first. We have to start at China has influence over our elected leaders and even who the next prime minister would be. They can limit the number of people who the liberals will put into the leadership position, and they can win the leadership race, right? So here we go. James says, this is the most important story in recent Canadian history, at least within the last 4 decades. Through my conversations with Sam Cooper, I've come to believe that there's irrefutable evidence that China has had a significant amount of influence over Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party since at least 2015. China is a hostile communist country with the ambition of becoming the new world power by 2049, the 100th anniversary of the Chinese Communist Party. This was Mao's original goal with his superpower plan and continued under a variety of more moderate and hardline leaders until the present day. China's current president, Xi Jinping, is a hardline communist and brought a return to Mao's original version of communism by force, except now the technology exists to simply delete people from public life rather than starving, torturing, or murdering them. China, I would say that unpersoning you and freezing your bank account would be a form of torture. No, I think so. China, and if you starve somebody to death, is that not murder, right? If you prick me, do I not bleed? China has its tentacles wrapped around every major global organization, the WHO, the WEF, and the United Nations. They are directly responsible for the Marxist cultural revolution in the West. I think that's pretty accurate. I think that's probably true. The incoming widespread internet censorship and systems of social credit score that will emerge under the cover of climate change, 15-minute cities, digital IDs, and central bank digital currencies. They're the source of it all. And our current federal government appears to be under their full control. Canada is ground zero for China's quest to achieve global totalitarianism. This is the most important issue of our lifetimes, and we need to demand action immediately. We cannot allow China to operate within Canada's borders any longer under any circumstances. So Sam Cooper says, hostile state agents could install prime minister without election. MP Michael Chong testifies. Liberal Foreign Minister Freeland didn't respond to veiled threat against MP Chong in 2019. Also, the Foreign Investigation Committee hears. So that's interesting, right? And something we've been talking about on this show for a few days anyway. There's been at least 2 write-ups that I've written talking about that. And one thing I haven't touched on is the Conservatives' leadership race and if China had an influence in that. And Aaron O'Toole says they sure did. So that's interesting. Kay Nugent says, well, now this is interesting. Aaron O'Toole just threw Pierre Poilievre under the bus. Pierre Poilievre, the illegitimate leader of the CPC, needs to go, they say. And here's a clip from the CBC, right? This is a headline on Twitter. It says, former Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole believes foreign interference may have led to his removal as party leader, according to documents tabled before the Foreign Interference Inquiry yesterday. And that's a CBC article that I don't have, so apologies about that. Patty says, non-resident... Oh, I can go get it. Hold on. Let's go get it. Here's a bit more on this O'Toole accusation from the CBC. Former Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole believes foreign interference may have led to his removal as party leader, according to documents tabled before the Foreign Interference Inquiry. In a document containing notes from an interview between O'Toole and lawyers acting for the Foreign Interference Commission earlier this year, O'Toole is quoted as saying he was suspicious about the motives of the person behind the petition that called for leadership review following the 2021 election. Mr. O'Toole also believes foreign interference played a role in his ouster as party leader, says the document. In the immediate aftermath of the election loss, a petition and public relations campaign campaign against Mr. O'Toole was initiated within 48 hours by a high-profile CPC party member who had served on the National Council of the party. A trusted source in a diaspora group and a journalist have advised Mr. O'Toole in confidence that this specific party member had unusual ties to the People's Republic of China government. Mr. O'Toole has no information to corroborate these claims, but he trusts the sources. Ooh, unnamed sources say, right? So there's all sorts of accusations flying around. Do any of them have any merit? Who knows? Patty says non-resident students were provided with falsified documents by the Chinese consulate, but Justin Trudeau knows about all of this from the beginnings. Terry Glavin says Trudeau did nothing about MPs' recruitment of Chinese students. So again, there was 11 MPs who were elected just in the Toronto area, and I've heard stories of University of Waterloo's buses, or University of Waterloo having buses pull up, students pile on and be trucked around to political events. So bust around. Terry Glavin, this is the National Post. Trudeau did nothing about MP's recruitment of Chinese students. Prime Minister was made aware of Liberal nomination meeting incident by CSIS, Foreign Interference Inquiry hears, and did nothing, right? So they knew and they did nothing. Among this week's many disturbing revelations about the Trudeau government's official indifference to Beijing's interference operations during the 2019 and 2021 federal elections, what might come as the biggest shock to most Canadians is just how easy it was for Chinese high school students to be bussed in to vote for Beijing's favorite candidate in a Liberal Party nomination race in the Ontario riding of Don Valley North. The candidate was Han Dong, whose last-minute admission to the Justice Marie-Josée Hogue's public inquiry into election interference that he'd personally recruited the students was a shocker too. So was the Canadian Securities Intelligence Service's brief to the effect that the students appeared to have been coerced by a proxy of China's Toronto consulate and warned that they'd face reprisals if they refused to go along. So it's not just that the students in the University of Waterloo are doing this, it's that they're actually being forced to do this by the Chinese state via the Toronto consulate. Yikes, right? Like, that's not good. The Liberal Party saw nothing amiss about foreign students showing up to vote en masse for Dong, who subsequently stepped away from the Liberal caucus to sit as an independent, while a melodrama derived from leaked CSIS reports about his conduct sorts itself out. So, temporarily? The party's rules say that anyone over the age of 14 who is ordinarily resident in Canada can vote in party nominations and leadership races. CSIS also says the students not resident in the Don Valley riding were provided with falsified documents by the Chinese consulate, presumably to make it look like they live there. So, I mean, do you think, hearing that our elections are above board? Why do you think that? If you think they are, I don't think they are. I can't bring myself to trust our elections because it seems like our elections have a lot of vectors to be attacked and to be exploited for people who have bad intentions, bad actors, and things like that. Here's BUAC, and he's sharing this global news headline that I missed from the 1st of March. Wonder how the vote buying money got into the province. Right? This is kind of tongue-in-cheek because he's sharing massive multi-year BC money laundering investigation ends without charges, as they all do. This is from 23. Actually, this is not even from this year, last year. So how do these people get paid? They get paid through the Vancouver method, the Toronto method, and the money laundering that's been happening in BC with people who are government officials, senators, very high-powered people. Do you remember, what was his name? I can't remember. Raj Grewal. I got it. He had a gambling issue, and he was gambling. Like, the House of Commons is across the street from a casino or something like that. Somebody built a casino really close by, and he was going to gamble as he was working. And so, and there's all sorts of land things that had to do with him. So, man, the money is flying around. There's no transparency. It seems such dirty business, right? It seems very, very suspect, all of this stuff. Very suspect indeed. CBC News is reporting the head of the RCMP says police force did not open any foreign interference related criminal investigations during the last 2 general elections. Nothing to see here, guys. Chinese students being bussed around? Sure, that seems normal. That seems completely normal. Here is James Lindsay. He's talking about George Soros's modus operandi, the way he operates. And so this is a 40-minute, it's a 3-hour. I thought it was 40 minutes. I thought it was 35 minutes. I started this. I think that it is important to understand that there is a plan And we're going to be talking about the Liberals' plan in a minute, but there is a plan. They are running the plan, and the plan is to destabilize our society in order to make it easy for us to accept eating bugs, or easy for us to accept widespread power outages, to acclimatize to green energy, associated with green energy. That's what's going on here, okay? That's the problem. That's what they're trying to stimulate. They're trying to get it into a situation where chaos is happening and you're hungry and you're sick of it and you're tired and you don't want to do this anymore. They'll step out and say, all you have to do is eat the bugs, right? And so here's George Soros, examined by James Lindsay, and he front loads this by revealing the big kind of thing at the beginning. But I think that he's right. We're going to listen to about a minute, maybe a minute and a half. Here we go.
You want to move it to a new system, what you might call meta system change, or just system change, but usually we want something even bigger. Meta system change, a complete reorganization of the way that we think about our society. The societal paradigm has to shift completely. It's not just that you replace, say, Democrats with Republicans or something like this. It would be a system change. It's a complete revamping of how we think about the organization of society. If you want to do that, Soros believes it happens in disequilibrium conditions, and in fact chaotic conditions. The reason is because it moves according to people's misperceptions. And so, because it moves according to people's misperceptions, they're desperate to make sense of their chaotic world, and they will follow whatever guideposts seem to make sense that are put in front of them. In other words, when there are chaotic conditions, people are easy to propagandize. You can tell them where you want them to go, and if you can kind of make the case for them, they'll go there and you can get the desired change, which we will at later discover the phrase that Soros uses for that is operational success. Well, what if your society is not in chaos? Well, if you want to make historical change, the first thing you have to do is you have to perturb it and perturb it and perturb it and perturb it until it's in chaos. So when you look at the cities, why do Soros DAs refuse to prosecute crime and they tend to do all these things? Because it creates chaos, and chaotic conditions require people to look for signposts or guideposts to get through it, and you can guide them to where you want. In other words, you can create a new you can change toward a desired state of affairs by pushing a stable system into chaotic instability and then telling people, basically propagandizing people into believing that this is the way out of the chaos, which sounds very much like the dialectical approach of create a problem, utilize the reaction to get to a predetermined solution on the other side, because in fact, Soros, in his own words, says his method is dialectical.
Okay, and we'll just leave it there because, like, is that too dense? I think that that's just right on, like just spot on. Like he's got it exactly. And I mean, I talk about this kind of stuff. It seems like we're all talking about this kind of stuff. It seems like their strategy is on display for us to pick apart. I almost want to jump ahead to the housing because the housing's more dialectical and kind of fits in there. And then we'll talk about the NDP and electioneering. Okay, so we're going to jump ahead to housing. Housing is the same kind of thing. So we've been pushed into a chaos situation. Okay, and the chaos situation is housing's unbelievably unaffordable. Our kids, if you have kids moving out right now, they can't move out right now. The mayor of Guelph, who has caused this problem, who has sat around while this has happened, despite people telling him the problem, and has not spoken up about it, but instead said, oh yeah, we're going to build our way out of this, moron, has now started saying, oh, my kids can't move out. You think? You think, buddy? Like, are you just realizing this? And so we've been pushed into a crisis situation where our kids right now can't afford to move out. And so people realize the crisis. It's immediate. It's clear and present. The danger is here. And now we're ripe to be moved onto something we would never have tolerated before. Do you want to live in an apartment forever? Right? Do you want to build 15-minute cities? That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to socialize our housing, problem, reaction, solution, right? Create order from chaos that they create themselves. And I mean, they're going to keep us in chaos because it's easy to control us that way. They're not trying to solve problems. They're trying to control us. That's the point, okay? That's what's going on. Justin Trudeau yesterday says, we need more affordable housing right across the country, but unaffordable rental units are too often lost to the private market. So we're going to protect and preserve them and work with partners to acquire even more. The government is going to buy up housing. We're going to listen to this because he's going to explain this a little bit more. I'm sorry. Justin Trudeau warning for 36 seconds. Here we go.
We need more affordable housing buildings just like this one right across the country. Unfortunately, too many of those places are under constant threat of being demolished to build condos or sold to speculators and large corporations that will increase rents at turnover. People are being priced out of their communities, and that's not okay. So we have to help nonprofits and community partners acquire units and preserve rents at a stable level. That's why we're here to announce the $1.5 billion Canada Rental Protection Fund. We need
Canada Rental Protection Fund, right? And they're going to buy up homes. So here's Polyev, and he says, bottom line on Trudeau's announcement, it doesn't build any new homes, zero. It gives groups $1.5 billion to buy up homes that already exist. Housing costs have doubled since he promised to lower them in 2015. Trudeau is not worth the cost of housing. That's campaigning, sloganizing. Here's Chrystia Freeland. She says, we have a plan to help every generation of Canadians get ahead. The new Canada Rental Protection Fund will help protect and grow affordable housing. It will not. It will not. It's the opposite. I said they have a plan for white Canadians to pay for the invasion to replace ourselves. They have a plan to steal our tax dollars and send those dollars to Ukraine. They have a plan to force us to eat bugs in the name of climate change. I think they belong in prison. Yeah, I think they do. I'm not going to play this because it's Chrystia Freeland walking around with, Olivia Chow and pretending that they're solving problems when really they're wasting our tax dollars for nothing. Liberal Party is using the same. This is all part of the same presser, same announcement. They say, we have an ambitious plan to build more homes faster at prices people can afford, and we're working with partners across the country to deliver for Canadians. They're not doing that. Government.exe is responding to this expanded housing announcement. Justin Trudeau says, because Canada's housing is so unaffordable, he's creating new initiatives that started in British Columbia, one of the most expensive real estate markets in the world. Imagine taking policies from Canada's biggest housing failures and then implementing them nationwide, as if complete destruction is the ultimate goal here. Chaos. And then you move, right? Then you eat the bugs, right? Because you're starving. Then you buy the apartment because there isn't anything else, and they're not building anything else. And if they could build anything else, it would be bought up by a housing accelerator for migrants or for foreigners or for whoever else these people are importing with our tax dollars. Wiretap Media says the Trudeau government inches Canada closer to communism with the announcement of the $1.5 billion rental protection fund, which is designed to give government agencies and government-funded nonprofit organizations, so Anti-Hate Network can become property owners like we Charity Brothers, remember those guys? The ability to purchase private property so they can rent it back to the taxpayer. Like, this is what you want? Are you kidding me? Nobody wants this. We don't want socialized housing. This is my local MP. He says, here in Guelph, we signed a $21 million deal that's going to make it easier to build homes. We've helped Guelph cut more red tape with a new housing affordability strategy and enhance systems that will streamline permits, development, and construction. Globe and Mail says Canadian housing starts expected to decline for the third straight year in 2024, the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Commission says. So there are fewer starts because the cost of building is astronomical. So it doesn't make sense to buy or to build homes because you're not going to make as tidy a profit. Or if you do, like, you can't build the homes that you want to build because the government's got their finger in all the pies, right? Olivia Chow says, question, what's one way to stop demovictions and renovictions? Answer, by taking apartment units off the market and putting them into community hands. Socialism, communism. In Toronto, we do that via a multi-unit residential acquisition program. The 2024 budget increases its funding to $100 million to buy a property to then rent it back to the taxpayer. And here is ML Keebler, and they say, doesn't the Toronto Community Housing Corporation have something like 20,000 units that are in such disrepair you can't rent them out to anyone? So how is taking over 100,000 more going to work out? Yeah, I remember watching news reports back in 2010, back when the news still seemed like relevant. And they were talking about how there was an investigative report into exactly that issue and how there were people living in squalor in low income housing because the low income housing hadn't been fixed. Like, the person said, my stove has stopped working years ago. Like, the top part works, but I can't cook anything in the stove, and I've asked for it to be replaced, but nobody comes. Fridges break down, leaks happen, nobody shows up. It's like having a landlord that's absent, right? The city of Toronto doesn't care, right? They're communists. They don't care. They don't care. You've got a roof over your head, so problem solved, right? There are poor people in Africa, don't you know? Stop complaining. So it's pretty wild. Ron Butler's responding to this whole thing. Billions and billions to develop more rental apartments. It's a great thing. I don't think so. But homes for people to buy aren't getting built. There will be less new construction starts for homes to purchase in 24 than there were in 23, which was less than 22 and less than 21. These are facts. And as the federal government pours money down on residential development, new homes to buy become scarcer. The feds don't have many tools to push construction of homes to buy except the infrastructure money, and wisely, that is one of the announcements, and more rentals will help a lot. Rose-colored glasses. I don't know. The biggest push to build purpose-built rentals is great for several reasons. Long term, it will eventually tamp down rising rents for tenants. If you can keep up with the rising, surging demand immigration causes, and I don't think we're even close to that yet. It reduces incentives for mom and pop investors to buy units. It will encourage mom and pop investors to sell properties to end users. No, it won't. Perhaps the most important, this federal money isn't just deficit spending. It's mainly low-cost loans that will go to private enterprise to build cost efficiency, and the buildings will be run by professional landlords in a rational way. No endless evictions to sell the properties. I think that it's interesting, considering that we're comparing between the communism, socialism of Toronto's housing program. He's advocating that this is better, and I don't think it is. He finishes saying, perhaps most importantly, much more stable for tenants. This is the no endless evictions to sell the properties. So having an agency running it, that stabilizes things for tenants, he says. Now we need to address the lack of homes to buy. It's far more difficult, far more prone to pushback from different camps. But if we don't start soon, the scarcity of homes to buy will turn low-rise property purchase into a massive social disaster. Yeah, I think that's true. And Sharkey says, not true. They can lower the HST on new homes as they have promised many times before. This would be an immediate savings to buyers. Yeah, very true. Unfortunately, again, like, people are looking at this, and it's almost like you're sick. You have a whole bunch of symptoms, and somebody gives you something to deal with your stuffed up nose, right? You're still sick, but now you can breathe through your nose, but you're still sick. You still feel like garbage. Everything else has happened. All you've done is dealt with the symptom. You haven't dealt with the illness overall, right? And so I think that's what we're doing. Like, we need numbers on this housing thing. We need numbers up because, everybody knows the numbers are at 200,000-ish, 250,000. So if we get numbers up, then it'll look like we're doing something. So they're doing everything they can to get to manipulate those numbers to have good headlines to win the next election. That's what it is. And it just feels disingenuous, because if they were actually solving problems, they'd be popular. But they're not solving problems. They're just trying to game numbers and convince people that their solution is the only solution. Bill Tufts says, mayors given veto powers over elected councils to rush Agenda 2030 housing. Developers given huge breaks to produce mainly residential units. Taxpayers give huge bonuses to multi-residence developments owned by private equity and public sector pensions. All true. And it's kind of like, it's crazy, right? And we're subsidizing the building of these multi-residential homes instead of anything else, because they're incentivizing these kind of builds. So we're a party to building this future out, and we should say no. We want family homes. We have lots of room. Stop this madness. Stop this insanity. Amir Hart again says, if Trudeau has finally admitted that mass immigration was a mistake and Poilievre is still calling for more international workers and students, doesn't that mean the Conservative Party is objectively the most pro-mass immigration party? And then a picture of one of the billboards that got taken down in 2019 that was making the economic argument that we don't want mass immigration coming into Canada. And unfortunately, we got that. And look what it's done, right? It's done nothing but harm. Here is Tenant Media, and it says, exclusive footage from inside the Migrant Support Service Center operated by multiple NGOs and the city of San Antonio. This building holds up to 600 illegal aliens at a time and provides rides to and from the airport for illegals, facilitating the smuggling of illegals countrywide. So why is the U.S. government, and I think that probably this is happening in Canada too, although I don't think I have any footage that backs that up. I haven't seen that yet. But I feel like this is happening anyway. Why are they engaging in human trafficking? Why are they moving people? Like, if you get told, go to the United States and you'll get taken care of, and then you show up in the United States illegally, like you've crossed the border illegally, you know that what you've done is to the law illegal, but you do it anyway because, people do that sometimes, so whatever. And people don't take care of you. Are you surprised by that? And do you feel like, I feel like I would expect to be removed at any point in time. And I think that if an NGO, at what point does whoever is helping these people get held accountable for what's going on? Like, if you and me, let's say, we got together and we were like, let's import a whole lot of people into Canada together, you and me, and we'll have a whole bunch of safe houses across the country and we'll pay for all their flights and stuff. And the goal of this, of course, is to win the next election. Do you think you and me would be in trouble? And do you think the NGOs who worked for you and me would be in trouble? I think they would. I think we would, right? What is going on? Problem, reaction, solution, right? Bringing order from chaos and all the rest of that. Here's just a little snippet. We've seen footage like this before. There's beds, there's migrants, there's people playing on phones, there's people watching television or, a screen of some kind that's for more than one person, right? There's bathrooms, there's cots, there's all sorts of stuff. It looks fine, I guess. But if you were running a human trafficking operation like this, you'd probably get in trouble. I would think, right? End Wokeness says foreign-born population growth. Barack Obama, 68,000 per month. Donald Trump, 42,000 per month, which is higher than I thought. I would think that you'd be able to get it down lower than that. Joe Biden, 172,000 per month. Double Barack Obama's, right? Wow, more than double Barack Obama's. So that's pretty wild stuff. There's a lot of problem, reaction, solution. There's a lot of, I think it's undeniable that we are actively engaged in conflict. I think that I don't think you can easily deny that there are bad state actors. They're engaging in destabilizing activities. They have taken over multiple levels of multiple governments, looking at Joe Biden, Blinken, Trudeau, Doug Ford, BC, all of BC, right? Danielle Smith, what's your game, Danielle Smith? Is it just China? Is it just owned by China and the WEF? Like, I don't know at this point in time, but it seems like it's undeniable that there are things that are happening that are well outside of the norm, and we're on the hook for it. And that seems to fix it seems like we're going to have to go into an active, hot conflict. And I hope that's not true. I don't want to go into an active, hot conflict. But can you imagine if somebody like I'm going to play you a video where Donald Trump says we're going to have the most deportations ever. Like, do you think that that's going to be peaceful? I hope it's peaceful, but how does that work, right? How do you fix that problem? So it's very interesting. Let's talk about Canadian elections. We'll get to the United States at the end of the show. Veteran NDP MP Charlie Angus leaving politics. Don't let the door hit you on the way out there, Chuckles. Good. It's about time. Like, these people should be held accountable. They should be held accountable for the damage they've done too. Tom Quiggin says 3 NDP MPs quit in one day. Is there something going on? The Andrew Lawton show says the NDP are bailing. So that's interesting. If enough NDP bail, does that trigger an election? That'd be fun. I don't have the names of the other ones. Pierre Poilievre says NDP MPs jumping off Jagmeet's ship before going down in defeat for voting to hike carbon taxes, free violent criminals, ban hunting rifles, and double housing costs. If you're a backbencher on the balance of power NDP run by Jagmeet Singh, you probably don't want to go door knocking. Like, you probably don't. So yeah, I'm out. And even Charlie Angus doesn't want to go door knocking. So Pierre Poilievre's pointing that out. Jagmeet Singh is still working with those keyboard uppercuts. Who do you think CEO and billionaires want in power? Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre. Either both are protecting their profits while your bills go up. I responded to him, cool, trigger an election. It's unbelievable that the deflection is continuing. Jagmeet Singh continues to say that it's CEOs and billionaires when it's actually bad policies propped up by him and whoever's influencing him. Because I don't think he's serving the base of the NDP. I don't think the NDP, the people who regularly vote NDP, really agree with what Jagmeet Singh's doing right now. But at the same time, they're not revolting either, right? Like, the backbenchers are staying put, except for these 3, right? So that's interesting. Maybe more will be forthcoming. Here is, honestly, this is the best speech I've heard from Poilievre ever. I looked at this and I was like, wow. Who knows? Still, somebody says he's still not talking about usury. The second one here. Somebody says he's still not talking about usury. And that's a problem. $63 billion last year, $81 billion for 2024. So yeah, we could we could really fix things. We could really, really fix things. And I still don't think that Polyev represents a win condition. But I think that, well, just listen. Here we go.
Justin Trudeau's not a liberal. It might surprise you to hear me say that. He's not a liberal. Liberals used to believe in liberty, and conservatives believed in conserving it. That was the common sense consensus we had in Canada. Justin Trudeau does not believe in liberty. He believes in government control. He wants to control your money. He wants to control your kids. He wants to control the economy, control your speech, control your bank account. He wants to control everything. That is illiberal. It's the opposite of liberalism. I don't want to run your life. I want to run your government. And a government that does a few things well rather than a lot of things poorly, a government that minds its own business and lets people live their lives. That is the traditional.
That a few things well, not a lot of things poorly. That was a Harper campaign slogan, I remember. So that's great. Will he get rid of the dairy cartel? Will he go after the price of energy? I think that, I was talking with a friend yesterday, and I said, I think a winning campaign policy, maybe not just like, it's not a full platform, but certainly a policy, would be make energy as cheap as possible. Make the price at the pump as cheap as possible, aiming for 70 cents a liter for gasoline, but even less if possible. And I think 70 cents is probably fine with the amount of money that we have kind of floating around. But can we fix that too? Can we tie our dollar to our oil reserves? Could we pump a lot of oil and have a huge oil reserve and say, and then just keep it kind of full, right? Just make sure that the oil reserve always stays to a certain level because it's tied to our money, right? So could we do that? We could do that, couldn't we? That's a little complicated, and a lot of people would get frustrated probably with that. But I think that if you came to the Ontario people and said, listen, I'm going to put the education back in the hands of parents, and I'm going to make it my single mission to make energy as cheap as possible. And that, if you make energy cheap, right? If running a business, if running Walmart, your energy bills are minimal, then you can do more for your customers. And it gives people who aren't Walmart the ability to get into a market, right? Like if you can run a store, and electricity isn't as much as your rent, that's great, because then you don't have to worry about that, right? And so that money that you're not spending on electricity is money that you can use to invest in your business or your family. And that's great. And why not? Like, why don't we have politicians who are talking about that? So, I mean, this is the best speech I've heard from Polyev. I'm not convinced, like far from convinced, because the party is kind of cracked. But if he's going to put his conservatives and have them govern in a way that he's talking about there, then a lot of people are going to be quite happy with that. And it's going to be very difficult to convince them that he's not good, right? Or that he's not delivering on the promises that he's making, because I think that he probably will, right? He probably will axe the tax and certain other things. But again, he's still talking about meeting the Paris Climate Agreement and things like that. So we'll have to see how that shapes up. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful